Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This is another real estate market update from around the country and in your town. Today we're visiting San Francisco, California. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where professionals and entrepreneurs publish to grow their businesses and leave a legacy. Joining me on the call is Wilson Leung. He's a realtor with Wilson Leung Real Estate based out of San Francisco, California. Wilson, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Looking forward to contributing as much as I can.
Wilson, tell us a little bit about your business, your specialties, and the types of folks that you specialize in helping.
Absolutely. So growing up in San Francisco, been here my whole life. We lead a team of 7 salespeople, including our staff. We have 13. We help over 100 families a year buy and sell in the San Francisco Peninsula, South Bay, and East Bay. And we're seeing the movement depending on where our clients are taking us and where they're moving to, just within the Bay Area or out of the area. And we've been in business for 9 years. So we'd love to share feedback on the trends that we see.
Right on. Let's get right into it. The question of the day, everyone wants to know, how's the pandemic affected real estate and the market, particularly in your area?
That's, I'll give you some good perspective on that. Once the shelter in place was enforced in March, mid-March, there was a 2-month lull in the market where there was a lot of uncertainty. And I think that 2-month period gave people good perspective on what was important in their lives. So we're seeing trends ever since then of people wanting to be closer to family or people making decisions sooner to move to a place where they may have more of what they need at home. So what I mean by that is, in the past, of course, we go to the gym, we go to school, we go to work, we eat and dine all outdoors and out of our house. Yet, I think the new norm is doing majority of that, if not all of that, at home. So a lot of people are realizing that the space they have at home or the proximity to the loved ones that they have or close friends is more important than ever. And they may not need to be closer physically to their workplace as much as they needed to in the past. So what we're seeing is in San Francisco, there's quite a big spike of inventory. Specifically, condos are taking a lot longer to sell. And that's obviously influencing sales here, let's say in the Peninsula and South Bay, where we do see a handful or less of offers on average. There's such a thing called transparent pricing in our marketplace versus pricing low and getting a lot of visitors at an open house and obviously pushing for a higher price. There's more transparent pricing in our marketplace right now where valuations are more closer to what the perceived seller's list price is going to be. The East Bay is really hot. There's multiple offers, pretty much guaranteed if you have a property that's move-in ready. Single families are outperforming condos. We do see that single families, the trend over the last 18 months or 21 months, so since the beginning of 2019, that there is a upward trend on average for single families, and there's less consistency when it comes to condos and townhomes, specifically the ones that share an entryway to get into a complex, because obviously there's more foot traffic that you're going to. As a consumer, I think more people are more conscious than ever about purchasing and finding something that obviously matters to them, whether it's amenities or also if there's going to be more opportunities to encounter other people, for example. So that's what we're seeing, at least.
That's really interesting. You're in a very unique situation, I see, because the majority of folks, I'm talking everyone I've spoken to so far across the country, has said that they have like no inventory, very low inventory. And as you mentioned, condos are up. So it sounds like an opportunity for buyers now, especially with the rates, how they are. What advice would you give to a seller now? If there's a seller that has been on the fence and considering coming into the market now, what's your number one piece of advice you'd give to a seller that's more important today than ever before?
Very specifically to this moment in time, September, and end of summer, we typically see a spike in inventory now in October. So for example, in 2019, the inventory spiked at the end of the third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter, which is this time. at this very moment in our marketplace, we haven't seen that just yet, at least in most counties in the Bay Area. In San Francisco, it's been increasing in inventory and consistent high inventory ever since, 2 weeks past shelter in place in COVID. So if I was to give advice to a seller, honestly, it's never about solely the financial gain or selling to net the most money. It's more so a combination of that, but more importantly, the personal needs of the seller. So for example, whether we're working with a lot of people moving out of area because they appreciate maybe bigger spaces or a different lifestyle where maybe it's a bit slower paced and being close to the city, where it's more dense as well. So I think for a seller, if you're considering making a move, it's what you want to pursue. You've probably been thinking about retirement. You've probably been thinking about moving out of area for whatever reason, personal reasons. And no matter what, you're probably, I think most sellers in our area end up sooner or later purchasing something out of area that is much more stretches their dollar for the space because prices are quite high here in the Bay Area. So I would say my advice is understand the market that you're in, understand that any well-priced, well-prepared listing that is move-in ready or leans towards move-in ready will still sell for a good price. It's just a matter of course, relatively speaking, before or after COVID, there might have been a better time or worse time, but it's never a bad time to pursue your goal. And your goal is obviously constantly changing, and more than ever, the things that are important to ourselves and in our lives and the people that we want to be around have really changed. And during this time, I think it's more valued than ever before. So hopefully that gives some insight.
Switching over to the buyers now, opportunities abound for the buyers. What's most important to them now? What's your number one piece of advice for buyers getting ready to be totally prepared to come into the market?
Absolutely. So the buyers that specifically are still buying in our areas, which there's healthy movement across the board, buyers and sellers are making moves. The buyers that are purchasing, the first question I ask them is always, is this going to be a perceived long-term purchase? And if not, then maybe it doesn't make sense, right? Because we've seen 9 years of growth in our marketplace. Not saying that there's a guaranteed down market or a shift in market, but if you're not purchasing for the long term, it may not make sense because for most people that we do assist and end up purchasing, it is a long-term purchase. They do anticipate staying in the area long-term, starting a family or working in the area. If it's a long-term purchase, historically speaking, it's always been an appreciating market for real estate in our area. There's limited land to build on. There's literally no new construction in our marketplace. So everything that you're purchasing potentially is resale. And even at that, there's limited inventory. And if supply is limited, demand obviously fluctuates depending on the jobs available in our marketplace as well. But consistently with low supply, there's fluctuating demand. It's still consistently 9 years running a seller's market. So if you're a buyer, take advantage of the low interest rates right now. For example, I'm personally in contract for my own home. My first primary, I purchased a lot of investment properties, but then this was the time I pulled the trigger on a primary because even myself, my family's here, our assets are here, my close friends, I grew up here, and I foresee myself staying long-term. So it doesn't make sense for me to continue paying rent that's not going to benefit me in the future. It makes more sense for me to find my primary residence and to contribute to my own nest egg and equity that one day I could tap into, whether home equity line of credit or whatever it is, whether I keep the home long-term, which is the plan, but also I'm long-term looking at this purchase for myself, and that's what I advise all my clients to, especially buyers.
This is really great information, Wilson. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in real estate. What inspired you?
Absolutely. So I'm a second generation, first generation born here in the United States, specifically in Chinatown, San Francisco. So I grew up very humbly, where my parents, only one was college educated, the other was not. What they did do well was they found a business that they could thrive in. And because they took risk, of course, in business, but also reinvested a lot of their money that they made into real estate. I was exposed early on as a property manager for my family, collecting cash for rent from tenants because they didn't want to do it electronically. And with those experiences, especially in San Francisco, where there's strict rent control and eviction laws, it exposed me to real estate. And because of the influence of my parents taking risk, and I wanted to make sure that my time and effort were able to compound over time versus for myself, I never could see myself working a 9 to 5 desk job. So that's why I got into real estate right out of college when I was 23. And ever since then, I've just stuck to it. And honestly, I'm your average guy that just stuck to an industry and kept on learning and kept on making mistakes, but also improving myself. So in the last, including this year, in the last 3 years, we've been able to help over 100 families buy and sell. And we focus on the long term. And our mission for our team is helping families build wealth through real estate, because that's our personal goals too, because we've seen what real estate has been able to do for our own families. So we want, I mean, so much of the American dream is tied to home ownership and finding that primary residence for you and your family. And that's what we preach. That's what we want to help people with. And we've been doing that for the last 9 years.
Wilson, this has been a terrific update. And with your experience, I know you can help a lot of people. So for our listeners that are tuning in right now and they're in your area and can certainly use your help, how do they find you and connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on, you can search my name, Wilson Leung, on Google. You'll find me. You can read our Yelp reviews. You can find us on Zillow. You can visit our website, teamwlrea.com, or find us on Instagram, which is Wilson WLREA. So,
Wilson, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This has been terrific, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully I was able to contribute to your audience and people learned something.
This segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where professionals and entrepreneurs publish to grow their businesses and leave a legacy. That's all for now. Join me on my next Expert Spotlight. Take care, everybody. I'm Mark Imperial.